Now is the time for Helter Skelter. With those words, in the summer of 1969, Charles Manson set into motion a wave of terror in Southern California. On two nights, Manson's murderous spree took the lives of at least 7 people, including the actress Sharon Tate and her unborn baby. The cult, or family, spoke of launching a holy war against the rich and the powerful. Many of its members were heavy users of hallucinogenic drugs, mainly LSD. The killings were bizarre and merciless. They triggered a public panic and raised the specter of drug-crazed youths slaughtering their victims at random. The very thought of young girls dressed in black, armed with sharp knives, entering the homes of complete strangers and mercilessly stabbing them to death in the night is so horrendous, the thought is hard to imagine the full terror of what went on at the Cielo Drive house. Once a place of love, and now a slaughterhouse. Manson was described as either a demented messiah, a psychopathic killer, or a man who controlled the minds of weaker followers. Testimony reveals that while Manson was not present at the home of director Roman Polanski the night of the murders, he planned and ordered the deaths of Sharon Tate and her house guests. It all started back at the ranch when Manson took Patricia Krenwinkel, Susan Atkins, and newcomer Linda Kasabian. They all got into an old white Ford, and Tex Watson was the man that Manson told. Manson told the girls to do whatever Tex said, is to go with Tex and do whatever Tex tells them to do. So they go out, they drive, they're all high on speed. Susan Atkins and Tex Watson, they're high on speed. Linda Kasabian, she was terrified, obviously, of what was about to take place. She thought, and the rest of the girls thought that they were going to go on a creepy crawly, which is where they break into homes, they move furniture around, and they sneak into people's properties to move the furniture around to show how weak and mindless people are, how lazy people are, how they're not aware. So they go up to the Cielo Drive house. First, they park the car down the hill, and they start going up the hill around the embankment, around the gate, because they thought the gate was electrified. So they climb over this embankment. They go down, and that's when Stephen Parent in his car starts rolling up to the gate. Tex Watson tells the girls to get down, and he goes up to Stephen Parent and shoots him 4 times in the abdomen and in the face and the chest. And Stephen Parent was a friend of the house's caretaker, William Garretson. So Tex Watson kills him, and then they all go into the house through a window, or they cut the screen door to get inside the house. Tex Watson sees Wojtek Frykowski laying on a couch, and he kicks him awake and says, "I am the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business." That is a quote. Then he sends Susan Atkins into the house to find out how many people are in the bedrooms. She looks and sees Abigail Folger in bed reading a book, and Susan Atkins also sees Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring in their bed having a platonic conversation. Then Susan Atkins gathers everybody from out of the bedroom and puts them all into the living room. When Tex Watson tells Sharon Tate, 8.5 months pregnant, to lay on the floor, Jay Sebring protests and says she's 8.5 months pregnant. She can't sit on the floor. And that's when Tex Watson shoots him once through the heart, killing him. And that's when pandemonium broke loose. Susan Atkins ties Wojtek Frykowski's hands behind his back with a towel, and Tex Watson instructs Susan Atkins to kill Wojtek Frykowski. She raises the knife in her hands, and in an interview she said she couldn't put the knife down. She just couldn't put it down, but it's speculated that she stabbed him in the leg 3 or 4 times. And then Tex Watson shoots Wojtek Frykowski. He starts stumbling out of the house. Meanwhile, Linda Kasabian is the lookout, and she's hearing all of this screaming taking place, and goes up to the house to see what's going on. And then Linda Kasabian sees Wojtek Frykowski stumble out of the house with this terrified look in his eyes. He's bloodied, he's bruised, And Tex Watson, Linda Kasabian said she looked up in the sky and realized that Charlie Manson was the devil. He was definitely not this wonderful man that she was led to believe. And so the killers all pile up in the car, and they actually go back and they take off their blood-stained clothes and they throw it over the hillside. And later, police would find the blood-stained clothes, jeans, and Tex Watson was giving Linda Kasabian things to throw out of the car while they were driving down the hill of Topanga Canyon, or in Beverly Hills. So Linda Kasabian throws the knives, the gun, the clothes, the bloody clothes out of the window. They get back to the ranch. Manson briefed the killers and asked if they had any remorse for what they did. And obviously everybody said no. And then they went to sleep. And the next morning, they watched the news accounts of the murders. And they were all piled in Johnny Schwartz's trailer, and they watched the news, and the first thing that came on was the Sharon Tate murders, and somebody joked and said, "Picked a good one" or something like that, and they laughed. They thought that was funny. This is when the orgy of murder takes place. It was just an orgy of murder all throughout the house. So, like I said, Wojtek Frykowski was pursued by Tex Watson, and he was stabbing him into the ground on the lawn. And Krenwinkel actually chases Abigail Folger. Abigail Folger makes a break for it. She tries to run away to escape, but the knife-wielding Krenwinkel chases her out of the house and pursues her, a hot pursuit, and tackles her and starts stabbing her over 20 times. I think she was stabbed over 20 times, and her white dress was covered in blood, stained red. And then Watson finally finishes her off when she refuses to die. Then later Krenwinkel would complain that her hand hurt because when she was stabbing Abigail Folger, I know it's very, very blood wrenching and hard to hear, but the bones got in the way, and that's what made her hand hurt. Patricia Krenwinkel, she's still doing prison in prison. She's the longest serving female prisoner. Then Susan Atkins is left in the house with the pregnant and beautiful actress Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate is obviously terrified. She does not want to die. She was the last one to die. She was begging and pleading with Susan Atkins, just let me live, just so I can have my baby. Let me come with you as a hostage and let me have my baby, and then you can kill me. She was trying to reason with Miss Atkins, but she didn't listen. She looked at her in the face and said, look, bitch, I don't care about you or your baby. You're going to die, and you better be ready for it, and I don't feel a thing about it. And it's speculated that Susan Atkins was holding down Sharon Tate while Tex Watson was stabbing her to death. She got stabbed in the chest over 16 times, and it's speculated that she was hung by Tex Watson, and the rope around her neck was tied to Jay Sebring, and Jay Sebring had a rope around his neck. There was blood everywhere, and Susan Atkins finally, dips a towel in Sharon Tate's blood and writes "Pig," P-I-G, on the door, a mocking salute. And before they went, Charlie Manson said, "Leave something witchy, leave a sign to let the world know that you were there." So "Pig" was written on the front door. The killers all leave the residence, and it was a complete slaughterhouse. The next morning, Winifred Chapman was the cleaning lady, and she discovered the bodies, and she goes over to the neighbor's house and screaming "Muerta, muerta," which means death and blood and murder and all that in Spanish. The only one left alive was William Garrettson. He was the housekeeper of the residence, and the police picked him up and as their number one suspect because he was the only one that was there that was still alive. But it was it quickly figured out that he was not the person that was responsible for this, but he was on the property. And to see all the bodies on the property, and you have no idea how they got there, and you were there all night. He said the radio was turned up, he was listening to music, but Krenwinkel actually went into the guest house, and William Garretson was not there. Krenwinkel checked to see if anybody was there. So, the horror of it all, and the bloodshed, and it's just crazy to imagine. I mean, I feel bad for Sharon Tate and her unborn child, and it happened August 9th, 1969, and this was the first night of Helter Skelter. This is what happened, after a long period of Manson insinuating himself in his followers' minds, and love to them meant death, love to them meant murder, and they wanted to save the earth, or some weird philosophy where they would take all these rich piggies out of Hollywood and put their minds back on the earth and try to save the earth at law. That was their whole thing. And there's no rhyme, there's no reason. They were just, these totally innocent people were just snatched by chance by this killer gang. And this was the first night of bloodshed. Next, I'll be talking about the LaBianca murders. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, comment, and favorite.